What's going on? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the preview edition. We're going to take a look at a couple of big races this upcoming weekend, the weekend of May the 18th. One from Friday, one from Saturday at Pimlico Racecourse in Baltimore, Maryland. The Friday race, the main event, the Black-Eyed Susan for 3-year-old fillies. The main event on Saturday, the Preakness Stakes for 3-year-olds, going 1 mile and 3/16. It's going to be the middle jewel of racing's Triple Crown here in the United States. Don't have the Derby winner, don't have any of the horses that crossed the wire in the top 4 from the Derby coming over. So it's going to be a wide open race with both of these because they are going to be expanded. Put those together, you get extended. Expanded stakes previews over on video.drf.com or YouTube with the Racing Forums channel. I'm not going to go through and do a deep dive. I'll show you some replays. I have value lines up, in my opinion, for each one of the runners in these races, and maybe just give you some ideas as far as wagering is concerned. Speaking of video.drf.com and YouTube, that's where you can find this podcast. You can find it audio-wise a number of places, video only a handful. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the video player on YouTube or directly to me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. So let's get things rolling. We're going to take a look at the main event on Friday first. It is the 3-year-old fillies going 1 mile and 1/8 in the Black-Eyed Susan. Friday's main event, race number 11. It's the Black-Eyed Susan, 1 mile and 1/8 on the main track for the fillies. It's an interesting race. I don't think there's any standout in here. In my opinion, the most likely winner is Point of Honor. She's going to be breaking from post position number 8 in this spot, trained by George Weaver. I like what she's done in all of her starts. I think she has an excuse for the Gulfstream Park Oaks most recently. We'll take a look at that tape here in a little bit, but I think the distance is supposed to be to her advantage. And to me, she could be the kind of filly where if you're not sold on the 3-year-old girls at this point, where, you know, the Kentucky Oaks, it was a good effort from Serengeti Empress. I'm not trying to take anything away from her, but it feels like these girls are still sort of, you know, figuring things out and sorting one another out. I think it's going to be an instance where you have one of these sort of later developing 3-year-old girls that really takes this division over as the summer goes on. I think maybe Point of Honor could be one of those, and maybe things start here on Friday afternoon. I think she's the most likely winner. I made her 3-1 on my value line. The horse that I'm picking, though, is this filly right here. The number 2, Off Topic. Trained by Todd Pletcher, one of 2 in here for Pletcher, ridden by Johnny V. Johnny V's ridden her in all 6 lifetime starts leading into Friday afternoon. She was 3rd in the Gazelle most recently, but I think there's a couple of things that you want to take out of that run. Let's watch the tape first, because Always Shopping is out here parked in the 2-path in the Rapoli Silks, and this is Off Topic down here in the Pampa Silks in behind horses, and Johnny V's all over her, pushing real hard, quite a ways from home. I think she just doesn't appreciate being in behind horses right now with the kickback that she's getting. Meanwhile, talking about the perfect sort of trip for a horse like Always Shopping. She's prompting the pace. Timeform US had it all blue coloring, meaning it was slow, helping horses that are forwardly placed, compromising horses coming from off of it, like Off Topic. But I like once Off Topic kind of finally gets outside a little bit. She does finish with some interest here, and she's making up some ground on Always Shopping at the very end. So I think there's reason to believe that she can continue to improve. I know she's only had 1 victory through 6 lifetime starts so far, but I'm hopeful with more pace signed on here in the Black-Eyed Susan on Friday. Maybe Off Topic can get a little bit of a better run. Maybe she's not compromised. Second off the bench, she's paired up career by her tops of 78. I want to give her a look. I picked her a tepid selection, but nonetheless a selection here in the Black-Eyed Susan. We just saw Always Shopping. I don't want to take anything away from her. She's a nice filly at this point. She's bred to run all day. I think she just had everything go her way most recently in the Gazelle. If the pace is indeed a little bit on the quicker side, I think she's going to have to come from a little bit farther back. But guess what? She did that in the Busanda here back in early February, where she came from about 2.5, 3 lengths off of it and made up enough ground to go and get the job done. So I think they're both pretty comparable. I wouldn't fault anyone that wanted to say Always Shopping is the one you want over Off Topic. I just think Off Topic might be a slightly better price, and I think there is reason to believe there may be a forward move here for her in her second start off the bench. Let's talk about the horse with the highest figures as far as recent races are concerned in the race. It's Cookie Dough. Goes out for Stanley Gold. I have long maintained that Cookie Dough, I wanted her badly in the 8 bells at Churchill on Derby weekend. They wanted to get her into the Kentucky Oaks. She did not draw in. They run in this spot instead. I maintain she's going to be a hell of a lot better going shorter than she is going longer. As the distances get longer, I think she gets a little bit less effective. One turn, whether it's a one-turn mile or 7/8 of a mile, I think that's really when Cookie Dough is at her best. But having said that, she has run well in instances like this. She's out here on the front end. This is the Gulfstream Park Oaks, and the reason that we want to take a look at this, not just because of this filly right here in the green cap, but keep an eye on these Eclipse Thoroughbred Silks back here. This is going to be Point of Honor. The track at Gulfstream Park this day, intensely speed friendly, and the fractions were not all that fast. So you have a horse like Cookie Dough, who's on the front right now. She's basically had everything go her own way. On the flip side, you have Point of Honor, who's going to shoot down to the inside. She's not going to be able to go and make up all the ground, but I like the way that she's trying and finishing at the end. And again, if you think that she was way against the grain of the racetrack this day, you want to upgrade her significantly. And meanwhile, you probably want to downgrade Cookie Dough because she couldn't see out the mile and a 16th on a speed-friendly strip. What's she going to do at a mile and an 1/8? I hope she runs well enough here, tires down the lane, and they turn her back in distance for one of these races down the road, whether it's the Acorn at Belmont Park or one of these other one-turn races. Cookie Dough, I think she's good. I don't like her at this distance. We just saw the tape from Point of Honor. The local hopes, you have Our Super Freak. You also have Las Setas. Las Setas hasn't done anything wrong. In 5 lifetime starts, she has 4 wins, all of them in gate-to-wire fashion. She'll need to show a different dimension, I believe anyway, if she's going to win here in this spot. The other tape we'll show is from the 7 Brill. And I can understand anyone that looks at Brill and is intrigued and enticed enough to say she might be the best horse in the race. I'm growing increasingly concerned about how far she really wants to go because you see her best races thus far from a number standpoint are at 5 and 6 furlongs. When she goes longer distances, she just doesn't seem to quite have the sort of oomph to get the job done. This is her most recent run in the fantasy. Here she is on the outside prompting motion to motion. Now keep in mind, they went a crazy fast pace in this race. 46 and 3, you can see that for the half mile. She's going to eventually get run down by Lady Apple, who shoots down through the wood on the inside. Motion to motion, her Kentucky Oaks, I don't think you want to use that as a representative effort, simply because they tried to rate her for some reason. I'm not sure why. But you see Brill right here. She has every opportunity. And not only does she not get the job done, she finishes 3rd. She doesn't get by motion to motion. So I'm not convinced that necessarily longer is going to be to her advantage. I think she's another one that might excel at shorter distances when it's all said and done. I know the pedigree would say she probably wants to run even longer than this, but I have to be honest. I just think more and more time goes by, I'm less and less convinced that added ground is going to be her friend. I made her 6-1. I can understand folks that want to get involved with her. In my opinion, I'm going to be against her in a spot like this. I think she wants to go shorter when it's all said and done. So where does that ultimately lead me for my pick in here? Again, I'm going to go with the 2 off topic for Pletcher, 1 of 2 in here for Pletcher. I do think the 8 Point of Honor, though, is the most likely winner of this race. That would be a bit of a cold exacta for me, or I shouldn't say cold, but if you wanted to box that up. If you want to play any sort of multi-race wagers, I would want to have some coverage in this race. Point of Honor would probably be an A. I would have Off Topic as an A. As far as Always Shopping is concerned, since they're so close, I would probably have to make her an A as well, but I wouldn't be totally opposed to the idea of making her a B, just simply because of, I want to weight my opinion accordingly, and I know I've assigned the same sort of odds for both Always Shopping and Off Topic, but I picked Off Topic and I like her more than Always Shopping. Maybe I elevate her to an A and bring Always Shopping down to a B. But I do think it's an interesting race. I don't think there's any standout, with the exception possibly of Point of Honor. But at this point right now, at this stage, she is far from a standout in here. She deserves to be the favorite in my opinion. I think she's the most likely winner. But she still needs to go out there and prove that she can continue to improve and keep moving along and ultimately end up being one of the better 3-year-olds of her generation. But for me, I think she's the most likely winner. Point of Honor, I'm going to pick her second. I'm going to take a small stab with the number 2 Off Topic, 1 of 2 in here for Pletcher. Main event Saturday, the 13th race, the Grade 1 Preakness, 3-year-olds, 1 mile and 3/16 on the main track down at Pimlico. We're going to have the expanded stakes preview over on video.drf.com. We're going to, as well as the Racing Forms YouTube channel. We'll go over the race on out of the gate. So for me, I'm not going to show you any tape. I'm not going to show you any of that kind of stuff. I'm just going to rip through, show you the odds that I've made these horses, and maybe just throw in a quick hit kind of just a piece, just a line, and go on with it. So the number 1 War of Will, I've said it for how long? I thought he was going to run well in Kentucky, basically draw a line through the Louisiana Derby. He was going to get tired at the end of the Derby. Move forward here, second start off the bench. What I'm calling off the bench is second start since I'm going to call it the middle of February. I think War of Will runs the best race of his career. I think he should be one of the favorites, if not the outright favorite, and I think he should win this race. The number 2 horse in here, Bourbon War. By the way, I made War of Will 5-2. Bourbon War made him 6-1. Think he's going to be the wise guy horse. Everybody and their brother seems to be on this horse, especially at the Racing Form. Blinkers go on. I think he's very talented. He would have taken money in the Derby had he run there and he gotten in. He did not. He'll come here. I think he takes money. I made him 6-1 from his 12-1 morning line. The 3 Warriors Charge, I think, is the speed nearest the rail. They have to go with him. Not convinced that he is quite necessarily as good as some of these other horses are. I want him to prove to me before I go taking any kind of a middling price. He's 12 on the morning line. I made him 19-1. If he doesn't make the front, I'm not convinced he can win. The 4 horse is Improbable. I think this is the horse that will be your post-time favorite in the 2-1 range. He's 5-2 on the morning line. I made him 7-2. Thought he had a good trip in Kentucky. Just never really looked like he was going to be a winner at any point, in my opinion. I think he can win this race. I just don't think he had any sort of real tremendous edge on this field. Maybe he'll be better going back to a fast main track, but from what I've seen, he deserves to be one of the favorites. I just don't know that he deserves to be an overwhelming favorite. The 5 horse, Owendale. Not sure where the Lexington came from. If he can replicate that and gets pace to run at, you have to look at him as a player. I just want him to prove to me that that was not a bit of a fluke, because otherwise, that's the only race that's a bit of an outlier. I know from a buyer standpoint, he had been trending the right direction, but from a time form standpoint, that 120 is purely an outlier. He needs pace to come from the back. I'm going to make him prove it to me. I made him 13-1. He's 10-1 on the morning line. The 6 Market King for the coach, Wayne Lucas. I assume he's going to be forwardly placed. There's no race on his page right now that's good enough to win. I don't know about the distance either. I made him 99-1. The 7, Always Mining, one of the local hopes in here. It goes out for Kelly Rubley. This is one that's not done anything wrong. Good son of Stay Thirsty. I think this distance isn't an issue for him. His speed is his best asset, but I don't know that he's fast enough to clear off to the front here. I could see him taking up a pace pressing sort of trip on the outside. We'll find out if he's good enough. He's 8-1 on the morning line. I made him 19. Maybe I'll tweak that a little bit before Saturday. Maybe I'll bring that down. I'll again go over the value line on DRF Live on Saturday afternoon. Maybe I'll bring him down a little bit from the 19, somewhere into probably the 15 range. But right now, look, it's the thing about the value line. You can only have 100 points. You got to make them somewhere. Right now, I have him at 19-1. Signal Man, I made him 99-1. The Bluegrass, not a great effort, I didn't think. Thought he had a perfect trip, and he just didn't really kick on. The Fountain of Youth, give him the benefit of the doubt first off the bench. He needs to improve by leaps and bounds, in my opinion, to be a real threat in here. The 9 Bodie Express, 49-1 from the 20-1 morning line. I think he's an okay horse. I think he works out a similar trip to the one that he had here in this maiden special weight race. 3 starts back. I know it was at 7/8, but I think he stalks, tries to make his bid. Not convinced that he's good enough to win this race just yet. The 10 Everfast, 99-1. I look at this Holy Bull and say that's the outlier, bit of a fluke against a bad field at 128-1. I don't want any part of him. The 11 Laughing Fox, he's one if you're playing any sort of deep exotics, superfecta most notably. I think you should be using him underneath because he will stay as long as the race is run. The question is the pace going to be there for him to run at and close? And is he quite this good? His career best number of 91, not fast enough to be a serious contender at this point, but I think he's trending the right way and he goes out for Top Flight Connections. Made him 32-1 from a 20-1 morning line. The 12, Another Twist of Fate. Some people think that this was a loss for him as far as the post position draw is concerned. To be honest, I don't. I don't think the distance is going to be an issue for him. And Blaine Wright has said it, and I have it here written in my notes. Doesn't seem to enjoy being in traffic and amongst horses. That's a little bit of a concern when you're drawn down toward the inside. Well, guess what? On the outside, yes, you're going to have to carry some ground, but he's going to be able to take up probably a 3 or 4 wide stalking trip throughout in the clear, not have anybody in his way. There's a part of me that almost wonders if that's going to be better for him than if he had to be sent, if he was down toward the inside and be part of the pace a little bit more so. I think he's a talented horse. I made him 13-1 from the 6-1 morning line. I think he goes up and Bourbon War goes down. And that's sort of how they, the numbers will level out. But I think he's a talented horse. Would it be a stunner if he won? No, I don't love him in here. But it's one of those things. Again, you got to make decisions. 13-horse field. You can't like them all. You can't take them all. Another Twist of Fate made him 13-1. And win. I made him 19-1. The blinkers go on. Thought he got a little bit of a passive ride. And I don't mean to be bashing Julian Pimentel. It's not bashing. I just think it was a little bit of a passive ride. Didn't really get into him until about the quarter pole. If you're going to be competitive in a race like the Kentucky Derby, you got to, and you're coming from way out of it, you got to start that run at about 3/8, maybe even just inside the half mile. And I know it's a long run, but I think you got to do that a little bit. The blinkers go on. Maybe he's a little bit closer, but you know his game. Take him back, make one run. If you're playing exotics, you want to be using him underneath in supers and tries. I made him 19-1 from the 15-1 morning line. So the picks for me in this year's Preakness, I've been saying it for how many weeks now? 5 weeks, 4 weeks. I think War of Will is going to win this race. I think he is going to, this is a peak effort for him. He's coming up on it. I look at this and say, this is Bravazzo 2.0. He's a much better horse than Bravazzo. He is much more handy than Bravazzo is. Bravazzo had an issue in the Louisiana Derby. He had been gone for a while, comes back in the Kentucky Derby, essentially coming off of a, 3-month layoff, because the Risen Star would have been the last representative effort. Draw a line through the Louisiana Derby as we did with Bravazzo. What does Bravazzo do in the Kentucky Derby? Puts in a nice bid, flattens out down the lane. What does War of Will do? He's in a little bit tight down on the inside. I shouldn't say in tight, but he's a little bit keen, a little bit eager to go. Makes his move, flattens out down the lane. That's fine. What did Bravazzo do coming back 2 weeks later in the Preakness? Nearly beat Justify. What does War of Will do here in the Preakness on Saturday? I think he wins the race. The inside draw doesn't bother me. I would bet him at 5-2 or greater. I went 1, 2, 4, and 13 in this year's Preakness Stakes. There you go. We'll look at the two big races, or two of the big races anyway, down at Pimlico this week in the Black-Eyed Susan. I'll go with off topic. The Preakness, I will go with War of Will. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the video player on YouTube or over to me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Number of ways for you to check this podcast out. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. However you take this thing in, please rate, review, and subscribe. I will be back on Monday recapping the Preakness and some other stakes action. We'll do some quick hits and a stakes montage, weekend's best buyers, X, Y, and Z, as we always do on the recap edition. And then we will start to shift our attention to, we'll get a little bit of a breather, but we'll start to shift our attention 3 weeks later to Belmont Park for the Belmont Stakes. But first things first, let's get through this upcoming weekend down at Pimlico in Baltimore with the Preakness and all the other things that go along with it. Best of luck this weekend, however you play, whatever you play, wherever you play. This has been the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show.